How do I turn this thing on?
Should we ready to go? Okay.
Eric on? Where's?
Is Erica on?
Erica is, I see her. No, that's Lydia.
I see Lydia.
I wonder if Erica is on Amy's.
Recording in progress.
Okay, ready? Okay, it is 5 o'clock. I call this meeting to order. A quick introduction for the record. My name is Huang Tran, Chair of the FedRAC. On my right is Deputy Susan Honda. On my left, committee member Jack Dovey, Council President Linda Kochma, and Council Member Jack Walsh. And we have Councilmember Lydia Asifa Dawson online, and of course our regular staff. Thank you for being here. All right, the first item is public comments. Do we have any public comments?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. We're moving on to committee business. The first item is item A, approval of summary minutes for October 25th, 2022.
I move adoption.
And I will second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The matter passed 2-0. We are moving on to item B, Washington State Department of Correction Master Agreement Amendment. Autumn, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Autumn Gressett, Contract Administrator for the Parks Department. I am bringing forth the Washington State Department of Corrections Master Agreement Amendment. Back in June, we entered into an additional agreement with the Washington State Department of Corrections for additional cleanup around the Performing Arts and Event Center and throughout our city streets. That master contract takes us through 2023. However, there are several attachments and amendments throughout their contract that get updated every 6 months. That is what I'm bringing forth to you guys today. Nothing has changed as far as compensation or scope of work. They are all the same. We just simply need to update them so we keep our contract current. The official policy question is, should City Council approve the amendment to the Washington State Department of Corrections Master Agreement for Class 5 Community Restitution Programs and authorize the mayor to execute the amendments? And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So, Deputy Mayor?
Oh, thank you. So one of my questions is, they have a lot of different things that they could be doing for the city.
Correct.
One of them is cleaning up encampments.
To an extent, yes. They don't do anything in regards to hazardous materials. They have assisted us with encampment cleanups in the past. They provide assistance in regards to generic garbage, things that don't pose any sort of risk. And I would say, and John, you can correct me, I believe 90% of our encampments that we've cleaned up over the last couple of years within the time frame that we've had this contract, they've been on and provided additional assistance with.
So do they have a choice of what they do? I can't imagine not everyone would want to be cleaning up an encampment.
They do not have a choice in regards to what the work is that day. There are, if for some reason an encampment cleanup was what we were doing 5 days a week, every single day of the month, they do notice a drop-off in attendance of who shows up. And so that's why we try to switch up the work to ensure that we have significant attendance. But the reality is, too, that they also require people to attend at certain times regardless of what the cleanup is.
And so how many would we expect?
On any given day, it can be from 2 to 12. It really depends on the weather. It depends on how many are being sent towards our program at that point in time.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council President?
Is this the only group that we have cleaning up the encampments? I thought we had somebody else that we.
We do use other companies cleaning up encampments. This is not for encampment cleanup. They provide additional assistance when we go out to do encampment cleanups, but they are not the main source on there. Because again, they, as part of their contract, they don't do hazardous material cleanup. They'll provide assistance with general garbage that's at those encampments, carry out bags, things like that. But yes, we do have other contracts in place for encampment cleanup.
Are these people that have been sentenced through our court system, or are they just people in the court system?
Sentenced through the court systems throughout King County. I would say a majority of the people that we see come down are from Seattle and outlying. We do have an opportunity to increase the funneling from our court system, but I haven't pulled a report from Department of Corrections on who is specifically from ours and if that's changing over time.
Thank you.
Isn't pretty much everything coming out of an encampment hazardous?
I would say not necessarily always. The hazardous that they don't specifically do is needles, feces, things of that nature. They will do anything else. If it just looks like general garbage, they will pick that up. If they can or if they visibly see drugs, sharps, things of that, then they will avoid that area. And that's how they differentiate between hazardous and non-hazardous.
And they're sufficiently protected?
Correct. There is PPE requirements within all of the scope of work, and Department of Corrections actually under this contract includes that as part of the pricing. It's not an additional cost to us. They make sure that their workers have appropriate PPE for all of that.
If these were private employees or workers, would we be paying them the same rate?
No.
So what's the difference?
The rate with Department of Corrections is based off of a per day. Within this contract, let me pull the number just because it's not off the top of my head. We pay $25 a day per person for this contract. So if they get 8 hours of work done, we pay $25 for that one worker for that day. If we were paying a private company, we would be paying prevailing wage for that person per hour.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty good. Yeah. Go ahead, Jack.
Is it, to take advantage of this, is it possible to get more people from them, or is it limited? I see that it's just two people per, but I saw something here.
2 to 12.
I've lost it.
You're looking, I think, at the number of workers on crew, a minimum of 2 for illegal dumping site cleanups and any level 3 work. That's their minimum. Their minimum for litter cleanups, they'll take one guy or one person out there if one person shows up. But if they're doing illegal cleanups or a level 3, they require a minimum of 2 because there's additional hazards and PPE that needs to be taken into consideration. It really depends. We can't mandate them to send us 10 workers. It's really who's ever at the stop that day and gets on. They encourage more and more. We certainly, as a city, could probably work to encourage more of the citizens from our community who have these outstanding things to go to this work program. But that's not something that we can mandate from them.
So are these people who are on probation that are doing community service, or
Community
what's
service
the-
that they either owe fines, community service in lieu of jail time. There's a myriad of different reasons that they would end up within the DOC work program.
Okay.
And we're not given that specific information. So I don't have a category of
Okay.
who is which direction.
Right. Thank you.
So before we make the motion, I want to recognize that, oh, she just disappeared.
She'll be back.
She'll be back. Council members, Erica Norn. She'll be back.
So can I make a motion that we agree to accept the contract terms of the master agreement and move it to consent agenda?
Yeah, so we have a motion. I'll second that. All in favor, please say
I
aye.
have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. So if it's $25 a day per person and they have a fine, so does the fine only, do they only get $25 a day per, to use against the fine?
We are not part of that back end of their program. I don't know the answer to that. I could ask. I'm not sure that they will release specific information for how they negotiate that with the workers. but I can ask the question to DOC.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure, no more questions. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the matter passed 2-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are moving to item C, King County Aquatics Capital Grant Fund Acceptance. Mr. Ellsworth.
Good evening, Chair Tran, Council President Kochmar, and Deputy Mayor Honda, and council members. I appreciate you guys being here this evening. Before you have a policy question, should the city council accept the $250,000 funding from King County Aquatics Capital Project Grant? As most of you know, we're in the middle of our slide project right now, and we have received the contract for signature for the $250,000 from King County to help support that project.
Questions? No questions? Oh, well, Erica, welcome. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Should you tell her we're on item C?
We are on item C.
Thank you.
Okay, Jack. Jack Wash. And then,
Okay. So is this the project that John sent us the information on, giving us the background of the slide
Yes.
thing? Okay. So it's a much more extensive project than was originally anticipated, almost a year ago?
It is more extensive. Yeah, we've uncovered some things that are covered in that email that I sent you this evening.
Okay. And so was this $250,000 grant, this is new, was this previously anticipated?
Yes, this is
Yeah.
previously
Okay.
accounted for in the
Okay.
in the original plan.
Okay, all right. And so, so it's only going to cover a smaller portion of the
Correct.
total cost then?
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
all right. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So, John, for the email that you sent us, will you be coming to us for additional funding? Or-
Yes, we'll be presenting on December 6th.
For additional funding?
For additional funding, likely additional funding. We don't know the numbers yet, so we're refining the numbers of what we anticipate.
Is the pool currently open,
No.
No.
Pool is currently
drained?
drained and a demoed mess right now, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jack.
The lap pool's open, right? Just not the...
Yes, the lap pool is open, but not the leisure pool, not the
Okay.
pool that had the slide and the lazy river.
Okay.
Great, no questions.
So I move approval of the proposed acceptance of the $250,000 funding from the Aquatics Capital Grant from King County.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter
Aye.
passed 3-0. Thank you. Okay, moving along. Item D, purchase of okay, I can't say this, Thomas.
Verti.
I'm not even attempt to say
I
it.
think so, I don't know.
Well, it's I don't know. It could be pronounced VertiGIS or VertiGIS.
Okay, whatever it is.
I personally like the previous company, Latitude Geographics, but this other company bought them, so no longer. As you'll find out here shortly, they changed some other things too. So, good evening, Chair We'll stop. That's like VertiGIS all almost. Good
That's
evening,
okay.
Chair Tran, Deputy Mayor Honda, council members, council president. Before you tonight is should the City Council approve the purchase of VertiGIS software from VertiGIS North America Limited. And the specific application that we're talking about is called GeoCortex. They have now bundled it up into a suite, and they are also only selling it at a subscription model versus a perpetual one-time and then a much lower maintenance cost. So this item was partially included in the 2022 council-approved budget as part of the $181,000 Amanda 7 upgrade. However, between the time that we got the quotes as we're putting together the budget and now, the company was purchased and no longer offers the perpetual license model. And we're seeing this becoming more and more common because they claim it's what the customers want, but it's really what the shareholders want at the end of the day. So it's just something that we're seeing widespread around across the technology sector or in the industry. So instead, we have an annual subscription model before you tonight. The original budget was for a one-time cost of $37,000, $37,260, with an annual support amount of $7,707. The new subscription model is $15,965 a year. So that will be covered under our year one, which is why I said it's partially covered. But what we had budgeted for years 2, 3, and so on is going to be short by about $82.58 a year. And so this will be requested. So if committee approves this and it moves to full council and council approves this, what we've worked with finance is in the first budget adjustment of 2023, we will request more funding or appropriate more funding from the 121 fund, which is the automation fees, which has enough capital in it to cover. So that kind of hopefully shows the logistics that are needed to make this purchase and convert it from a one-time purchase to an ongoing subscription-based purchase. So what would be before you for council for approval is the 3-year enterprise license agreement will be paid annually in the amount of $14,500 plus tax. So it will come out to, it's estimated at $15,965 a year. So over 3 years, this will cost a total of $43,500 plus tax. Total estimation at 10.1% is $47,895. So a lot of numbers coming at you, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a lump sum of $47,895 over 3 years. The reason we're buying this is for a couple reasons. The first and primary reason is part of the Amanda program, we're upgrading it to Amanda 7, which will also support GIS integration. But they don't have their own what's called a viewer. So we have a bunch of GIS data on our system. In order to make that appear in the Amanda system, which is the permitting system, this is the required product to make that happen. So what's going to be great about this, and this is a long time coming, like people, a lot of the staff and CD especially want this, is if you're an applicant and you can come up to the permit counter and you can say, yeah, here's where my parcel is, you can see it visually on a map. Whereas right now the software doesn't. Like you can punch in the address and you can see it in text form, but you can't actually see it in relation with anything else. So you can say like, oh, well, my neighbor has this, or I want to change this setback, or I want to do a lot line adjustment or something like that. And you can visually see it all right in the permitting software versus having to bring up another window. So it's a lot more efficient. In addition, right now we have mailing labels. And right now that we get requests all the time for mailing labels, whether it be from police or from somebody's doing a zoning and they need to notify all their neighbors. It's X amount of feet away from a particular parcel. And right now, GIS has to be able to do that. With this software, it allows a lot better, more robust tool sets to be able to click and drag and just say print, make these labels, and it will just spit that out. As a matter of fact, we could even make that a service for the public on our website. So the software has quite a few benefits to us. In addition, one of the small underlying features of the subscription model is we also get an analytics component to it, which was we would have to purchase that separately before. So overall, it's a needed thing for our new Amanda 7 permitting software, and we do have the funding to cover it. Any questions?
I do. I have a question. So the price basically increased 100%.
Well, they changed. So in the packet, and I can try and bring that up here so that way you can see it. The The ongoing cost increased 100%. But what you'll see is there's no one-time cost. And that's how they get you. They're like, oh, well, you don't have to put a capital expense out. Instead, it's a lower cost ongoing. So everything that I kind of explained is shown right here. So the original perpetual model was a $37,260 initial outlay. So we'd pay for that up front, and then every year we'd pay $77.07. So that subscription model has changed. So that's gone, and the annual subscription model is shown here, where there's $0 up front, and then just shy of $16,000 ongoing.
The other question I want to ask is there a limit of how many computer that we can install this software?
No, it's a web-based hosted software. So I should take that back. It can be installed locally on our system here, and it also has a web-based component. So this subscription model gets us access to both. And so sometimes there's benefits to using the cloud-hosted software, and then there's benefits to hosted internally here on premise. So it'll get us access to both.
Thank you. Mr. Dovey and Mr. Walsh.
So is it right to assume that in 3 years, it's pretty much a break even, and the fourth year, they hose us? But instead of paying $7,000, they're going to charge $15,000?
Yeah, Adobe was the first to do this. Microsoft is following suit with Office 365.
So-
It's,
So is this, I mean, we're not going to change this out in 3 years, are we?
no.
So really, the discussion is not the 3 years where it's the same money. It's the discussion for as many years as we're going to have this, that we're going to spend an additional $7,000 more a year.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
So this is really a much bigger decision than 3 years.
Yeah, it goes along with any decision that council makes in regards to software. C-Click fixes the same thing. It's $48,000 a year that we pay for that. And it's, sure, we bought I think it was a 5-year agreement when we went forward with C-Click Fix. But after 5 years, I mean, they're going to adjust accordingly with inflation and everything else that they're doing. And so it's either A, we continue with that product, or B, we cancel the service.
Yeah.
And that's how they get you, unfortunately.
And I'm not suggesting that we should not do this, but I think the real message is they've raised the price, and going forward, we're going to spend in our budgets 5 years out, 6 years out,
Yeah,
more than you had anticipated.
you're correct.
In the initial, when they came and asked us to buy it, and we agreed to buy it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Walsh.
It sounds like this may be able to help reduce staff time, is that correct, or?
It helps some efficiencies. Is it enough to offset the cost of an FTE? No. But yes, it does. Every little piece that we can put in and make improvements to the permitting software, it helps.
Will it help speed up the permitting process?
So yes, to a point. This is the Amanda upgrade itself is a part that's going to, which is a part of this, or this is a part of the bigger picture. The $181,000 that we had budgeted for an overhaul of the Amanda permitting system, that will help efficiencies. The My Building permit that we've entered into contract with eCity Gov Alliance out of Bellevue. A lot of local agencies within King County and even Snohomish County are members of that. That will help we're getting really close to bringing that online. That will help with staff efficiencies and speed up the process of permitting. So this is minor in the grand scheme of efficiencies. This is a visual component that will help people understand when they're looking at applying for a permit or working in the software, to be able to visually see parcels and how it impacts surrounding parcels and other things.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions.
I had my hand up.
Oh, sorry, I didn't
We
see you.
can't see you on the screen. There you are.
Hi.
Go ahead.
I just want to say I've been experiencing the same issues with software for my company. They, for example, Intuit, which is Microsoft raised the cost of me using the software, so I have to pay for an annual subscription on top of buying an annual upgrade. Otherwise, it just doesn't work at all. They changed it so that you have to be connected to the internet for the software to even work and logged in. And you get monthly fees. You get, every time you use it, they charge you now. And so my cost of doing business just using that payroll program more than doubled in 1 year. And so I completely understand what you're going through with this. And I'm so grateful to Adobe and Microsoft for spearheading this business model. They're just the best.
Yep.
And I think that as a council that we should expect for the cost to increase again, because that's what I've noticed they've done to me with my cost of doing payroll. It's just a thought that maybe, you know, we could put it in our minds that he will be coming again and requesting an increase for the same software in the future, maybe even every 6 months.
Thank you, Councilmember Norton. You're 100% right. Next year, we'll be renewing our Microsoft agreement for 3 years, and so that's exactly I think they've already talked about 15 to 20% increase in cost, and we already pay them $121,000 a year, I think. So you can do the math. It's going to be a sizable chunk, unfortunately. But it's the tech industry. I mean, Salesforce is another huge company. Fortunately, we don't buy Salesforce. We don't have a subscription to them. We don't need them. But everybody comes to us with the hands out for sure. And this is the tip of the iceberg. We're actually just looking at hardware, like a network switch where that connects all the computers together. Cisco has figured out a way to have a subscription on that software as well. So, and it's hardware, which we'd normally buy one time. It'd last us 7-10 years, and then we would replace it. But now they want you to have an ongoing subscription to it. So it's crazy.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion. Okay, you get to do the next one, Erica. I move approval.
No, I can't do the motions.
Okay,
Thank
got
you.
it. Okay. I move approval of the purchase of the Veritech GIS software from VeraGIS North America Limited for a total not to exceed $47,895.
Chair, if I may make a small point of order, make sure we're reading the committee recommendation rather than the proposed council motions when we make these motions.
I move to forward the proposed agreement to the December 6th council meeting consent agenda.
Second.
I'm glad you kept me legal.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Yep, I second it.
All right. Any other questions? No? All in favor? Please say
Aye.
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 Aye. Matter passed 3-0. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving to item E, Tourism Enhancement Grant Recommendation 2022. Chase.
Good evening, Council Chair Tran, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and Council Committee members. Before you is a Tourism Enhancement Grant recommendation by the LTAC Committee for $5,000 to support the Miss Washington Volunteer 3-day event that's being proposed in January 2023 at the Performing Arts and Event Center. They forecast that this event is expected to bring in 109 hotel room nights, and that's the purpose of the Lodging Tax Fund, to generate hotel stays and to be used for tourism enhancement within the city. So the LTAC Committee's recommendation is to fund Miss Washington Volunteer event in January 2023 for $5,000 to help with the event, and I'd be happy to help answer any questions or to follow up if you have any.
Thank you, Chase. Questions? Deputy Mayor.
Is this part of the Miss America program?
I don't know that answer specifically if that's part of the greater Miss America program, but it is Miss Washington program. I'd have to follow up and look into that.
It's kind of exciting that they're here and that they're people from other states are coming in, and I'm thinking that as a city, maybe we could do a reception or something for them to welcome them and make sure they come back.
Thank you.
Good suggestion. Mr. Dovey?
Lydia's got a question.
Lydia, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. It's not a question, I just wanted to comment on it, and I'm not sure, like, if it's part of Miss Washington. However, they are going to bring a lot of traffic into our city in terms of attendance and people who are going to be participating, and what do you call it, the audience and stuff. So I think it's going to be a great event, and they also want to come back in the future also. So I think it's a good place to start, and I just want to make sure that you all know that I do support this program. Thank you so much.
Okay, I move to forward the tourism enhancement request to the December 6, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. No questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 In looking that up, it looks like it's Miss Washington teen volunteer, teenagers.
They have, I met some of their contestants, and they have adults and teenagers.
Okay, so I think the matter passed 3-0. And we are moving to item F, AP voucher for October 16, 2022 through November 16, 2022, and payroll voucher from October 1st through October 31st, 2022. Chase.
Yeah, good evening again. Before you are the AP vouchers in the amount of $4,592,398.90. Payroll vouchers in the amount of $3,979,049.36. This is comparable to prior months. In your packet, you'll see 2 prior months that compare payroll as well as accounts payable. I did follow up with answers to Deputy Mayor Honda's questions earlier, and I'd be happy to answer any others that you may have this evening.
Thank you. I do have some additional questions. On the auto claims for the police department, for the body damage for the vehicles, was that caused by other people, that their insurance covered it? Or is that, if it's caused by our people, then our insurance, we don't have insurance that would cover damage to vehicles, or do we?
I would have to look into that. I know that there are risk accounts associated with it, but I'd have to check in with risk and law to find out if those are claimable expenses.
It seemed like quite a bit. I haven't noticed that before in the vouchers. There were six claims this month, or this time around. And then on the police department vehicles that we're purchasing, we purchased 26 so far, and we're going to purchase 43 total.
That's correct.
So the 43, the ones left to purchase, are they in then 2023, or will be charged to 2022?
We may have to do carryover on some of them, depending on delivery. If they don't get delivered by December 31st, we cannot book the expense to the current year, and it would have to be in the following year. I don't have an answer for you right now as far as if all vehicles are going to be delivered by December 31st, but I can follow up with Commander Schwan to see if he expects all to be delivered by that point.
So at that point, then every officer will have a vehicle. Is that true? When they're all purchased?
I think that is the intent of it, but I would have to check to see if any one officer is sharing a vehicle still. But yeah, I think the intent is that every officer would have a vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other questions.
I move to forward the vouchers to the December 6, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
We have motion as a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter passed 3-0. We are moving on to the last item, monthly financial report for October 2022.
Good evening, Council Chair Tran, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President, Council Committee members, and public. Before you is the October monthly financial report. We are 10 months through the year now, and so we've closed the books at period 10, so we're coming up to year end very rapidly. So I'll draw from your packet and highlight some of the revenue sources, some of the expenditures throughout the report that you have in your packet. Through 10 months, these are two of our major funds, the General and Street Fund. This includes departments like Public Works, Parks, Police, and major revenue sources such as sales tax and property tax. And revenues are favorable to year-to-date budget of $49 million by $5.6 million or 11%. And expenditures are also favorable, but are about on target for the year. And so we're looking good within those funds. Those are our two major funds within the city, kind of outside capital and debt. And so that gives you a good picture of how the city's doing. This is the revenue dashboard of major revenue sources. This slide, all of our major revenue sources, as you can see, such as sales tax, utility tax, property tax, are all favorable to year-to-date budget. And so we're doing well, and I'll expand on some of these a little bit more throughout the presentation to give you a little bit of context of why they're doing well and where we're headed. With sales tax, we're favorable to year-to-date budget by $1.6 million and over prior year by $1.1 million. This is primarily due to services and construction-related sales activities. So not as much in the retail category, more in the services and the construction. And that's indicated by the red line and the blue line in the graph shown here. So the red line is actual this year, blue line is prior year actual, and so you can see year over year, sales tax is doing better. And then compared to budget, on a scale of a budget of about 17 million, we're doing better than budget by about 1.6 million. And so we're looking better in the categories of services and construction on sales tax revenue.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So we're up because of construction. Have we done the analysis, if we didn't have construction, how much would we be down on retail? I mean, if we looked at those two, and it's great that we're up. But
Right.
if construction wasn't here, would we be down?
No, we would not be down if construction wasn't here. We'd be a little lower than the year to date, but not by much. The construction's not significant. One other thing, sales tax is on a 2-month lag, and so we do receive it 2 months later than typical. So we monitor that on a month-to-month basis. Utility tax is continuing to be above year-to-date budget as well by 1.3 million, and over prior year just by 172,000. So not much over prior year. But the types of utility tax that are doing better than prior year and over year-to-date budget are electric and solid waste and recycling activities. So these get remitted by each of the utility companies directly to the city. So they don't pass through. This is on a 2-month lag as well. And they're continuing to do well. The electric's at the 7.75%, and the solid waste and recycling activities is the 17.75% utility tax. And that's indicated by the year-over-year actual is indicated by the red and the blue line on this graph as well. And so you can see that it's about on target or over by 172,000, so it's not significantly over prior year, but we're still trending upward compared to budget. Property tax is cyclical, as you can see in the graph. So we typically receive the property tax payments from King County in April, May, and October and November of each year, and it just depends on when, like the date when they remit it, based on when we receive it. And so you see that little spike in the current month, but we're expected to see it even out by year end. So it's very cyclical. We pass the amount that we're going to receive at the beginning of the year, and then we receive that throughout the year, and it just depends on when it's remitted. But it's expected to come in very close to budget by year end.
Can I ask another
Yeah.
question? You know, we're seeing in the real estate market in Federal Way, prices of houses are dropping fairly drastically. I talk to my wife all the time, and this house is 100,000 less than it was last year. And all our citizens have been assessed at the higher value, which was the prior year. Are we going to see any fluctuation where the assessor is going to come in and say, okay, that house was no longer worth 800, it's really 700, and then we'll see a drop in our revenues? Or has anybody talked about that, or does that even happen in reality anymore? Because we've always been going up.
Yeah, revenue is based off of 1% over 1% plus new construction over the prior year. And so based on the revenue we receive in the prior year, we can receive up to 1% or and plus new construction. So it ended up being about 1.3% over the
I
prior year.
understand it's one that goes up, but
Yeah,
you know, in many neighborhoods where people's houses were assessed at let's say 700,000 or even 500,000, they're now worth 400 or worth 600. So even if it goes up 1%, is the county going to come back and say, you're right, your house went down, so the amount of revenue could go down? I mean, we've been in an inflationary period for a very long time, and it keeps going up, but it started to go down.
yeah.
Have we anticipated that, or do we think anything would happen from that next year?
Yeah, the assessed value doesn't affect the amount of specific revenue that we receive because it is the 1% cap. And so it's, if someone's property goes down, we still can receive the 1% on top of the prior year's revenue that we received. Am I answering your question? Or
Well,
is
you
that-
are in a way. I've just heard a
Okay.
lot of people complaining recently that their taxes are on an inflated value where their house is not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
The taxes came out at the right time based on last year's valuation, and now they're not able to sell it for that same amount. Like in my neighborhood, one went 300,000 less. It had some problems,
Yeah.
but 300,000 less than it was listed for last year.
Right.
And so if that cycles through, will we have any issues with what we're collecting?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this, like I said, this spike was due to timing of receipts, and will even out by the end of the year. On real estate excise tax, this is related to your question. It continues to come in strong. It's 1.4 million over year-to-date budget. In this last month, 90 sales occurred between residential and commercial properties. This is a restricted revenue source that can only be used on capital purposes, such as park and transportation construction projects. We also use it for debt, but we do continue to monitor this to make sure that it continues to come in strong. As interest rates are increasing, the sales could decrease, and so we need to monitor it and make sure that the revenue continues to come in strong there. But as you can see, it did decrease slightly in this last month. Lodging tax is on a lower scale. We only have 150,000 budgeted. It comes in a little over 200,000. It is coming back to pre-pandemic levels. Hotel stays are increasing. This is also a restricted revenue source and can only be used to promote tourism. Similar to the item just a couple items ago, we had the tourism enhancement grant. It can pay for things like that. And it's restricted, but it is coming back. The hotel stays are increasing, which is a good indicator of the economy. And we also are monitoring that revenue source. This is the last highlighted revenue source that we'll be going over in this report. It's 743,000 over prior year budget investment revenue and 516,000 over year-to-date budget. This continues to do well. This has to do with rising interest rates and the continued investing that the city is doing. We have capped off at the 50 million on the investments. Now refocusing on the city's cash position, so outside of revenues, the city's cash position continues to stay strong. The yellow here that's highlighted represents what's needed in the cash balance to cover accounts payable, payroll, some of the city's ongoing expenditures. And green is what the state treasurer's government investment pool has in its balance, which is basically cash available within a day. So if we needed that cash within a day period, we have access to it. And then the blue is what the city's investment program is. And then this table shows each of the items that have been invested. So as you can see, out of the city's cash position, about half of it has been invested. There's still approximately $19 million to be spent in ARPA. There's a debt pay down will come into next month's report for the target property, and then the remaining is liquid. And so we don't expect to continue to do more investments. We continue just to stay static on that level and monitor our cash position to make sure that we stay healthy. So for 2022, through the first 10 months, we're managing to budget. We're staying within our expenditure control. Our revenues are favorable. Expenses are on track. We will be coming in shortly after the first quarter of 2023. We'll come back with some 2022 obligations with contracts and some of the items that we need to carry over. We usually have an amendment somewhere around like April or May of the following year to do amendments similar to what Thomas was just talking about, the 8,000 that he needed amended. That will come back in that amendment. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Chase?
I have a question. Chase, the senior rebate program or the rebate program, do you have any highlights or any changes that will be occurring this year with that?
We did just send out the packet. The information is still the same from the prior year. It is based on a flat rate per utility tax provider, and so there's a specific amount that you can get reimbursed for electric, for water, for cell phone, for cable. That packet has been put together and it's been sent out to the people that we sent it out into the past. And my understanding is that it's going to be coming, I think, to be talked about at this next senior commission, I believe,
Okay.
To be communicated a little further.
So do you know how many people it was sent out to?
I don't have that number. We can follow up with you, but I think Sherry.
113, and that was for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Council President?
Well, normally the two big drains on our budget, I can see where we're doing better than we projected, which is also true for the state. I think the state said that their revenue coming in is higher than projected by, I think, 880 million. So they're up to 68 billion, which is very favorable for the state, but they don't expect it, they expect that to go down. But I'm wondering how we're doing with the community center and the performing arts center, because traditionally those two buildings are two of the major drains in our budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the community center is coming up and doing better, except that, of course, there's no water, whatever.
In the pool.
In the pool, right?
Let me get back to
But I'm just
that.
wondering, I'm more concerned about the Performing Arts Center.
Yeah, so the Performing Arts and Events Center, we budgeted, so they have a subsidy from the general fund, utility tax fund of about $1 million. We didn't adjust that during the last budget amendment that we just brought before council. So they are staying within what was previously approved, and they're,
So that's 1 million for operating, correct? That's not including the bonds.
that's correct. That's not
So
debt
bonds are
service.
separate.
Yeah, debt service, yeah. But the debt service is separate from that $1 million.
So I saw where it said we had 6 million yet in debt service on the PAC.
That's correct, 6.2 million. Yeah.
How much do we
which
pay on that every year? I'm just
we
curious.
pay, with principal and interest, it's approximately 800,000.
So we're kind of 1.8 in the hole? So we're taking 1 million from the general
Right.
fund, but the revenue coming in to offset the general fund.
Yeah, that has to be paid for by, that is currently being paid for by real estate excise tax, the debt service payment.
So I'm wondering how much we're in the hole every year.
Yeah, so it's $1 million for subsidy for operations, and then it's an additional approximately 800,000 for the debt service payment.
But none of that is offset by revenue.
So revenue collected through the operations of the Performing Arts Internet Center? No.
Thank you.
Council Member Norton?
Thank you. So Chase, am I to understand, you said, so for the PAC is $1 million a year plus $800,000 a year for the contract?
No, so the 800,000.
No.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure, because I was a little distracted, so I wanted to make sure I wrote down the correct information.
Yeah, so the $1 million a year is a subsidy for the fund. So there's a Performing Arts and Event Center fund, which is the 115 fund. You can see that on page 169. And page 168 of your packet. The $1 million is used to keep the fund operating. So there is currently, year-to-date, the fund started with a beginning balance of $873,000. They brought in $1.2 million and spent $2 million, with a portion of the debt service paid of $274,000. So we haven't tapped into the subsidy yet, but by year end we will. The $1 million subsidy is what's budgeted to support the fund to keep the facility operating. So the $1 million is a support that's given after the fund spends its money, brings in its revenue from the operations, and pays its debt. So the debt is paid for by real estate excise tax is the source. The $1 million is to help offset the additional expenses over the revenue that they bring in. And that's budgeted at $1 million of general fund and utility tax.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then I just wanted to point out something. I'm not sure if this is something that we do in our city, but I know that someone I knew who lived in Browns Point challenged the tax rate of her home when she received her bill one year. She was a senior citizen, and they raised the value of her property by over $1 million because the city built another road on the side of her property. And because of that access, they decided it was worth an extra $1 million, and it was going to drive her out of her home. And I was just wondering, is that something that we can do as citizens in Federal Way? Can we say, hey, my home, I'm just going back to what Councilmember Dovey was talking about, with the homes actually being worth less than what we're being charged with our taxes. Is that something that we can do in Federal Way? Are we able to challenge the valuation of our homes?
My understanding is anybody within King County can contact the assessor's office and make a claim, again, like a disagreement with what their assessed value has.
Yeah, that's correct. Any citizen can dispute the assessed value of their home each year when it's the new value is calculated. You have an opportunity to challenge it at that point, and actually also to answer Councilmember Dovey's question from before a little bit as well. The reason you haven't seen that yet is because since since it's a yearly calculation, it's a snapshot in time, so it just takes a while for it to be reflected in the assessed value. That will happen. For instance, in the Great Recession in 7, 8, 9, it wasn't until 2009 that assessed values on residential properties were started to decrease. So there's always kind of a lag there between when the market actually falls and when the assessed values actually fall.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Chase, I have a question on the PAC. When we talk about the subsidy to the PAC, so does that include things like the $15,707.56 for the replacement of the computers that is in the vouchers this month? Does that include things like that?
That's correct. If it's charged to the Performing Arts and Event Center, it's paid for by a combination of revenues that are brought in and the subsidy that is being given to the fund.
So for every time that we replace something or update something at the PAC, it's included in the subsidy? Or is it's counted towards the PAC?
Correct. Yes. So the PAC is charged it's called an internal service charge. And so any information technology upgrades that the PAC gets are charged directly to the Performing Arts and Event Center Fund.
So it's not in addition to the subsidy, it would be included in the subsidy?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dovey?
Deputy Mayor Honda asked a question just now that perked my interest. If we're subsidizing the PAC by $1 million out of the general fund, and all the organizations keep coming to us saying, hey, you're charging us too much to use this city facility, I mean, and this is a hypothetical question, we as a council could say, since we're giving them $1 million to run their business, we want to address the price differential that our citizens are always talking about? I mean, because we ultimately control that, correct?
Right. So the $1 million is covering the current operations of the fund. And so if there was an additional decrease in the cost for outside parties, it would potentially increase the subsidy that would be needed for
I
the fund.
understand that.
Yeah.
But we're subsidizing $1 million plus or minus. And then everybody comes out here and complains, or many people complain about, I can't afford to be there, and it would be something we may want to have at our retreat. I mean, you might want to put it on there, because it seems like, you know, we're taking the money out of one pocket and putting the other, and our citizens are paying more because we're subsidizing this thing, and it's got a flawed business plan. But that's not you're just the accountant, I get that.
Yeah, it's actually 1.8 because 800,000 for the bonds.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, that's okay.
That's another 800,000 among friends. I mean, almost $2 million we're losing.
So, but we do need to address I still need to hear about the community center, but we still need to address the issues where we're losing money. So we can either, we need to increase our revenues because we've obviously lost retail. There's nothing more at the Commons Mall in effect for retail other than Target. And so we need to address how to increase our revenues as a city. And in order for us to be able to do other things in the city, we need to address where we're losing revenues and how to increase, whether we get grants, federal grants somehow. I think that's a valid discussion for our retreat. We were just having a little side discussion here about the fact that the city only receives 1% or the implicit price deflator in our property tax revenue, although property tax revenue is going up, that goes to the county, whether it's Pierce or King. And so King County receives all that money, but it's not capped at 1%, correct, for the county?
Yeah, I don't know what the other jurisdictions have restrictions on their rates for. I know that ours is restricted at 1%.
They're like levies and school levy and,
Yeah.
Fire levies and all the levies that but.
Yeah, I know our finance director spoke to the levy lid lift during the budget process as far as that being something that cities can do. but that would take a vote of the people to do a levy within the city.
Councilmember Norton?
Thank you, Chairman Tran. So when is the contract with the current company that's managing the pack up? When does that expire?
I don't have that answer, but I can follow up with you with Parks.
Okay. Because I think that that's something that we could look into during the retreat, is trying to figure out how to get a better contract. I think that it's a really bad contract for us. It's good for the people who are running the pack, but it doesn't require any performance. Actually, what it does is, to me, it's overpaying them in the first place. And then if they don't lose a certain amount of money, then we pay them more money. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. I've never seen a promotion contract like that before. And I used to work for a comedy promoter who, he's all over. And I'm really good friends with Brian Hallquist Productions. He owns a huge organization. I've never seen, and he's an entertainment organizer. But anyway, I've never seen a contract like that. So I was just wondering if maybe we could, if the deputy mayor and the council president could just kind of think about putting it as a discussion of how we can improve with the next contract that comes for the city with the PAC, how we can improve revenue that way and not lose so much money.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, I think it's my turn to say, I move to forward the October 2022 monthly financial report to the December 6, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter passed 3-0. Okay, that was the last item on the agenda. I just want to remind the public that there will be no meeting in the month of December for our committee. So our next meeting will be on January 24th, 2023 at 5 p.m. in this room and also available on Zoom. So since this is our last meeting for this committee, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, council members, and staff and the public for your support during the year. Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Okay.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too.